If you're watching this video, you have received the employment expenses summary. So let's get started. Completing the summary is a three-step process where you review the T2200, you fill out the info or the info tab, and you input the expenses on Excel. Now the first step, that's to review the T2200. Now you should have received this from your employer. What the T2200 will do is tell you which expenses and what items are applicable that you would be able to claim. So be sure to review it. This is an example of what the T2200 looks like. So if you've received one or it looks familiar, you're on the right track. Now before we get to the Excel summary, note that it's been made to be responsive. Now what this means is that based on how you respond, certain cells and instructions will pop up. So what's important? Take your time and walk through it carefully. The intention of this video is to make sure you understand how it can help you so you can maximize its value. When you move forward to the Excel summary, the first tab you will work with is the Info tab. The purpose of the Info tab is to just collect items required for auto expenses, home office expenses, whatever is applicable in your case. Okay, so let's go to the Info tab on Excel. I'm just going to jump to that tab right here. So I have it open. You'll see this is the employment expenses summary, and this is the Info tab. Okay, you're gonna get an example of how this is responsive right here. So if you had a home office which you use for business or for work rather, if you say no, nothing happens. Okay, if you say yes, you'll see that there's instructions that pop up, and you just input it. And it's pretty clear. You use the shaded cells to just input, in this case, the area of the home used for business and for your total area. Now you'll see the automobile one's a little more involved. If you say no, again, nothing happens. Let's say you say yes. You see all this info comes up. It asks you if you purchased or leased it. It asks you details about your make and model and then the kilometers as well. And then if you say purchased, certain info pops up, whereas if you say lease rather, the info changes and it needs different stuff or different items. And you just follow it based on how you've answered, and that's really just to make it easy on you so it doesn't cause any confusion. Okay. Now there's an important note specifically with the automobile information. If I've completed your return in past years, I will have most of the carry forward information. So I'll have almost all this information. So unless you purchased or leased a new vehicle, the only thing I'll need from you is just the kilometers in these two rows here. Obviously that changes year from year. So you could simply even write on this Excel summary, no changes to the purchase or whatever, and then just write down the 2 kilometers here and move on. Okay, and that's that. So that might make things a little easier for you. Let's go back to the slideshow for just a moment here. Okay. Now we move on to step 3 where we input expenses. So the expenses, they're separated into 3 tabs: home office expenses, auto expenses, and other expenses. And you would input based on what is applicable to you. In order for you to input expenses in each of those tabs, you would have to pick a method. Okay, now this will be clear once we go through the example. So let's do that. Okay, let's just go through the Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to jump back into the spreadsheet here. Okay, we've done this info tab. I've shown this to you. Let's start with home office expenses. Let's assume that you are claiming home office. Okay, so there's nothing here, as you can see, and it tells you the first thing to do is select a method. So let's just pick totals. We're going to pick totals here. And here you see some shaded cells where it says to pick the expense item, and there's a drop down menu here, so it tells you specifically what you can claim. Okay, so let's say heat expenses for the year was $1,400. So you would just input the total here. As you can see, it's responsive. That popped up as soon as you inputted, or rather picked heat from the drop-down menu. So we go over here. Let's say you pick insurance, and you see again, it just the total pops up, or rather the instruction to input the total. If you're familiar with Excel, you know that you can use formulas. So let's say that you know that insurance is $90 a month. So you can just go equals, you can go 90, and you can just go times 12 months, and there you go, there's your total insurance. Okay, and you would just move forward in each column with the shaded cell, which all have drop down menus, and you'd pick and you would just enter the total. Okay, so the lesson here is that when is the totals method applicable? When you sort of already know the totals for everything. That's best practice there. Okay. Now it might be that you want to use the details method, so let's go to the other tab for that. So if you go to other, let's presume that you're going to claim. So sorry, we'll go to details, and you're going to claim, let's say, meals and entertainment. You're going to claim accommodations because you travel for work purposes and it's out-of-pocket expenses. Okay, so same thing as before. There's a drop-down menu, and you'll see that the selections have changed. Okay, so let's just go to meals and entertainment, and then once you input that, there you go. It's responsive once again. It tells you to input your first receipt here. So let's say you had a $65 meal. Okay, there you go, and then right away the next line pops up with instructions. So you had a $45 meal here. Okay, and then let's say you had a $75 meal here, and you see that here it's totaling it. Okay, that's sort of the power of the form. So, and let's say that you also have accommodations, and the same thing's happening. So you got a $200 night stay somewhere, and then $235, and it's doing the same thing. So the lesson, when is the details method critical for you? It's when you have credit card statements, or have invoices or receipts, or combination thereof, and you need somewhere to input the totals where it'll total it for you. That's when you would sort of use the details method. Okay. Now there is another sort of method to consider. Let's say you want to use a combination of both, some expenses with totals and some with details. So I'll give you a good example of this. If you have automobile expenses, maybe you have totals for everything except gas. Maybe you just have a stack of gas receipts, or maybe you have credit card statements with all your gas expenses. Okay. So in that case, we would use this sort of combination method. Okay. Let me walk you through this. So you pick the totals method. Okay, and you'll see here, you're familiar with this now after going through it. And your insurance, your car insurance is $120 a month. So again, we can just use the formula here. We go $120, we go times 12 months. Okay, and there you go. Here's your insurance. So you know your insurance for the year. And maintenance and repairs, it's about 3 invoices, you've totaled it, and it's about $625. Okay, great. Now you have fuel and oil, and you don't know the total. You have a bunch of receipts. That's where you'd go to this thing called the receipt summary page. Okay, this sort of mimics the details method. Okay, except it includes all the expenses for all 3 categories. Okay, you see here, and you would just go to fuel and oil. This is for your own guidance, really. And again, it's just the same thing, $60, and then the next one pops up $54, and then the next one pops up $45, and you're just walking right through this 32, you see, and you're just typing up all your gas receipts. Okay. Once you've done that, you'll see there's a total here. So just take this total, you know what it is, 246, and just go to auto, and just type in 246, and there you have it. That's a way to sort of use the power of both by using the receipt summary page. If you want to use a functionality of adding the totals that I've sort of incorporated into this. Okay. So that's it. That's how you would import, or rather input all the expenses, the information we would need to make sure we get it on your return. Okay, and that's really the end of the presentation. Now, the purpose of this video and the purpose of this summary is to serve and provide value. Nonetheless, if you have any questions, you could definitely email me, and I would be glad to help.